Kristin, thanks for being here
Thanks for having me.
at Lake Fork, or however they pronounce this town. Was it Yantis, Texas, bluegrass and bass? And you've been teaching banjo sessions. I've been teaching guitar sessions, and I've asked Kristin to lead us in a discussion that I just want to call jam survival. And what I mean by that is how to approach situations where you might be playing with other people that you've never played with before, and also playing songs that maybe you've never played before. Maybe you're familiar with the song's melody, or maybe you're not. So one of the more stressful things as a musician, as you're learning how to play, is being put in those situations where somebody looks at you to play a solo and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? And you learn over time to kind of have some go-to type tricks. I hate to even call them tricks because they're not novelty necessarily, but just some go-to things that you can do to help you tackle solos and playing songs that you've never played before. And really, when I think about pros like Kristin and others that improvise on these songs that they've never played before, you're doing the same thing that we're going to be talking about today, just maybe a higher level, because you've been doing it longer and you have more bags of tricks to draw from, and you've got your ears developed over time to where you can grab for things that you want. But why don't you talk to us just briefly about, if you remember back when you were learning how to play and going through that awkward time of trying to play songs that you'd never heard before and trying to present things that sounded good even though you didn't know the tune.
I think the first thing to remember when you start jamming is the phrase, just do something. It doesn't matter. It's you set the tone. It's about your comfort level. So maybe the first step in jamming, the first step of success is to go to one and to take part in it. So maybe you just sit back. You're not in the inner circle. You're in the outer circle. And you just chop along. And that's success, because that's a first step and it's a process. But the main thing that I encourage people to do is just to take part and be willing. I find the bluegrass community to be pretty friendly and pretty supportive. And I think everybody will have that experience. And if you don't, just don't go back to that jam. There are enough. I find it over and over up and to the highest level of musicianship that I've personally been exposed to, is that the more confident and versatile and experienced the players are, the more welcoming they are.
The kinder they are.
They are kinder. Yes. And, I've had just a crazy privilege of being around Bela a little, and I'm always so nervous at that particular camp. And he is the kindest, most supportive banjo player, because he knows exactly what I can do, and he wants me in my comfort zone. And he would never, if I was ever, out of that, he would say, well, just don't worry about it. I mean, and that's what I find over and over. And for him, maybe that guy would be Chick Corea, who knows? But no matter where you're at in your journey, the nicer players tend to be the ones who are the most at peace with their ability. And where you find some of that territorial stuff that you've talked about, which is unfortunately there, tends to be when people are insecure. So, the first rule of jam etiquette is, let's don't forget what we learned in kindergarten. There are just, we need to be kind and welcoming. And then there are also just some things to always remember. Just very basics. I like to have the rule, especially with banjos, if you can't hear the person singing or the person soloing, you need to play quieter as a group. Whoever is and sometimes you can really bear down because it's a loud singer or it's a loud soloist or whatever. And then other times you may have to play so quietly you feel like you're not playing at all, but it's so much more enjoyable if you can hear what the main attraction is at any given time. That's just a common courtesy.
Yeah. Sometimes when there's multiple banjos in a group, you find that you go times without playing at all.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times when it's an all banjo jam, which happens at banjo camps, you know, 3 is usually enough. Maybe you move like along the circle in groups of 3 or something, and you think about complementary things to play. But as far as general jamming, I think just completing one is the first biggest step, and finding a nice group of people and not being intimidated if you do have a bad experience. The reason I brought that up is it does happen, and it's just devastating to me when students report back that they had a bad experience. It breaks my heart. They finally build up the nerve to go, and then they're not welcomed. It kills me. So it should not be the standard, though, so keep trying. I will say, if you want to practice jamming, you know, maybe you're in an area where you don't really have access to that many people. I'm not sure how fertile the scene is around
it's spotty.
here.
There's some areas, but in general, it's not South Carolina, no.
Yeah,
Or North Carolina.
And we're spread out, this group. So a decent way to simulate a jam is just, now you don't have to own an album. You can just play with YouTube or Spotify or whatever it is that you have access to. But play with records, because that was the bulk of my jamming experience. I got to jam with the Bluegrass Album Band, right? Because you can't jam 5 days a week, but you can play with albums. And that's going to be your best simulation to try to start taking part. But now if we want to move into the practical application of some of these things. So maybe we can do some banjo ideas and then like guitar equivalents of that. For banjo players, for many people, the first idea is just to chop, right? And that's a great idea. And then the first idea for you guys on guitar is just simple strumming, right? And do all the banjo players know the guitar shapes? So everybody knows your best hope of figuring out chords is to watch his hands, right? But now if he goes to a C chord, I need to have memorized that's what a C looks like. So now I'm in C. We don't usually chop here, but we can. Oh, now I'm in D. Maybe I'm playing a D7. You play whatever you know. And then he goes again. Now we're back to G, right? So that's step 1, okay? If chopping is not good for you because it requires 4 fingers or at least 3, and remember, do whatever you can do. The first great step on banjo is to just take a roll, and this is what I tell people to do for soloing as well. Take a roll if we're in 4/4 time, which most songs are, that's already in 4/4 time. It's already divisible by, 4/8. Like an alternating thumb roll or a forward-backward roll. And let's be real, some people never chop with 4 fingers. Those chords just feel a little out of reach. Rolling may be easier for you. So if you take that roll that's in 4 or 8, it's going to work nicely in 4/4 time. And that can be your backup. You just play that roll continuously. And when he changes chords, you put your hand where it goes. And now you're playing rolling backup to whatever song. And guess what? We have to be real as banjo players. Sometimes our solo can just be that louder.
Yeah.
Right? You can just play over the chords with an easy roll and make that your solo, and it works remarkably well. So you want to maybe do that, and then you can show us some guitar equivalents.
For sure, yeah, let's do it.
All right, 1, 2, there's a
Now switch roles. Now maybe I'll play a solo this way.
that's some of that low hanging fruit that I was talking about. Because in the last guitar session we were talking about improvisation, and sometimes we can become paralyzed at all the options that we know are out there that maybe we're not comfortable at grabbing, and we forget about the things that are right in front of us that suffice, and that not only that, but are also quite tasty. And that's one of those is we've got these rolls that fit into 1 and 2 measure blocks that, as long as you're playing them in tune and your banjo, or in time and your banjo's in tune, it sounds like banjo.
That's right.
And it's a win, right? So what happens, Kristin, in your scenario if the guitar player doesn't know the chords either? If you're looking to me for chords and I don't know them, then what?
I think it's ideal if I cannot, full transparency here, I'm never this person, but you're incredibly valuable in a jam if you're willing to lead a song. Maybe you don't even play the banjo while you sing, because only superhumans can do that at the same time, sing and play at the same time if it's banjo. But it helps if whoever's leading the song can know the chords and maybe even run through those chords. So in the case of Blue Ridge Cabin Home, maybe I would say, if you're not ready for numbers yet, maybe I would say the chords are G, and you just run through this real quick, C, and then it's a D again, and everybody gets to try this out a little bit, and then we're back to G, and then it starts over, and that's the whole song. So you were able to tell people what the chords were, and you chose an appropriate song. Nobody loves the jam buster guy, so you want to choose a song that is appropriate for the people you're jamming with. So hopefully somebody can maybe even talk through the chords. But if there isn't a guitar player who knows the chords, and if there isn't a leader of the song who can tell you what the chords are ahead of time, there's an excellent solution. I'm going to let Ben tell us what it is, because I don't really know.
Well, it's kind of a joke of a question, but you gave a really great answer to that. But when I don't know the chords and somebody, and I can't read them from somebody's fretboard, then the bass is my lifeline.
Yeah.
Because the bass player generally always knows the chords. If they don't, then they're not playing. And the jam's really falling apart by that point. And most of unless it's a newer song, then most of your jam situations, most everybody's going to know the song. So it's rarely more than one person doesn't know the chords. But I'm going to listen to the bass. And when you have a good bass player like Sarah is, and if she is aware that I'm struggling to know the chords, she's going to tell me what the chords are without using words. And she's going to lead me there by leading tones. And I'm going to be brave here, and I'd like to try that with you. We've never done that before. But you're just going to play a song, and you tell me what key it's in, and then you show me where to go by what you play, and you can join in too,
Okay.
Kristin, and we'll see if we play this song with you.
Okay.
What key?
G.
Okay.
Let's see.
Putting her on the spot too.
Can I just make it up?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Just make it up. Just take us with you.
1, 2, 3. Just make us up.
All right, good. I only missed one, I think.
We both did. So I
Yeah.
say she missed.
Yeah, she
no.
missed up.
You were right.
But you learn over time to listen to these harmonic clues about where people are going, and the bass players often will walk there, and it just gives you clues. It may not be a foolproof way to do it, and it's a good ear training thing.